This is something I've discussed before. Made a video on it anyways, and wearing a yellow shirt then too. But yeah, going over it again. In the Christian community, a thing that is commonly said is God is in control, and it's supposed to be a reassurance saying, doesn't matter what's coming against you, God is your provider, God is your warrior, God will never leave you. God is your provider. God is your warrior, and God will never leave you. Those things are true. To say God is in control, though, that means who's responsible for the abortions, who's responsible for the murders, who's responsible for slavery, who's responsible for Adam sinning. Are you going to say God is in control of those things, or are you going to say man is? So, who's in control, God or man? Now, the distinction is, once we're in heaven, who's in control? God. Because heaven has gold streets. Heaven is top of the line. The earth is not top of the line. And how you can distinguish where God is in control and where man is in control is, what is the quality of living there? Is there poverty? Is there prosperity? That's how you know if God is in control. When you see poverty, God isn't in control. When you see murder, God isn't in control. God's not the reason that Cain killed his brother. God's not the reason that Adam sinned or that Eve sinned. He's not the reason for that. God wasn't in control of those things. God is not the reason that Satan, that formerly Lucifer, that Lucifer chose to become Satan. Lucifer is. Lucifer made a decision independent from God. Lucifer was in control. Adam made a decision independent from God. Adam was in control. Same with Eve. And we go down the line. I mean, there was an instance in one of the books of Moses where Moses, God tells him to do something and he gets frustrated and he just like he does something and he gets the result he was looking for, but he didn't do what God told him to do, so then that made it to where he couldn't go to the promised land. So God is not the reason that Moses did that. Moses is. It was something about like a stick smacking a rock and making water come out of it. Something to that effect. And then Jesus. When we get to Jesus, before we get to Jesus, let's go with the other ones. God is not the reason that Samson had a woman problem. God is not the reason that David committed adultery with another man's wife. God is not the reason that David had a man killed because he had gotten a man's wife pregnant. God's not the reason for that stuff. David was in control, not God. Because if you're saying God is in control, you're saying he was responsible for that. Whoever is in control, they are to be charged with their crimes. When I commit a sin, I'm not blaming God for that. I did it. If I sin, I did it. God didn't do that. If God is in control, I never sin. If God is in control, Adam never sinned. And we'd be in the Garden of Eden or whatever else. That's how you know that God is not in control. Because if God was in control, the earth would be exactly like heaven. Instead of it being God's footstool, it would be perfect like heaven. All this imperfection is because of sin. It's not that we can't be perfect, it's that in order to be perfect, you have to get on God's level. And the only way to get on God's level is the Bible. The only way to get on God's level is to understand the Bible the same way God does. To interpret His Word the same way He does. Because you interpret it any other way, you cannot have perfection. And that'd be like saying, oh, well, you can't interpret it the way God does. God gives wisdom. If any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who giveth it and upbraideth not. God gives liberally. God will give. If you don't have the wisdom to discern his word, ask for it and you'll have it. That's to distinguish. That's how you distinguish something. If I am running a business and I have someone who can provide me supplies, if I never ask them for this, well, they're not in control of my business. I am. So I can ask them for supplies, and when I do, my business does better. My business, maybe they have much needed supplies that I cannot run the business without. Like you have a food company. They've got to have food supplies to run the business. If they don't have food supplies, nothing. That is the relationship between man and God. God is our source. He's the one providing these things. But we're the ones running the business. So when we say, oh, it's God's fault that I didn't ask him for something, it's God's fault that I didn't get what I didn't ask for. It's God's fault that I didn't believe what he said. Do you see how that doesn't function right? How that's the spirit of error? How speaking that is the spirit of error? God is not in control, but God is available. God is going to honor free will. So you want to know who's in control? Free will. Free will is in control of the earth. Now God has established what will happen, so it will happen. Who decides when it happens is when man gets to the place that those words be fulfilled. That's like God doesn't just do things, he uses prophets. He has he gives a word to a prophet speaks it, then it happens. It doesn't happen before the prophet speaks it. It happens as soon when the prophet has uttered it, when the tongue of man has uttered a thing, then it comes to pass, not before. So yeah, this whole thing about God is in control being some sort of reassurance, it's a lie. And I just saw the camera freeze. Well, I don't know if it'd be called a camera, but either way, I saw the screen freeze. Which is unfortunate, you know, at better quality. Well, it's possible. Although I want to do even more than this because this is still camera roll. But above 480p, sure, that's something to consider. Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing about it. You go through all these Bible characters, you go through your own life, and you look at it. If God was in control, you would have never sinned ever, ever. If God was in control, I would have never sinned. That is how we know God isn't in control, because God cannot allow God will not allow evil in heaven. And yet you see all this evil on the earth. God is in control of heaven, thus there is no evil there. God is not in control of the earth, thus there is evil on the earth. It's not that God doesn't, I mean, God has power, that's not it. It's the point about God, in spite of what he actually can do, in spite of the power that he has to just wipe us out if he so wanted to, he won't. And that's how we know that he's given us control. In spite of what he could do, no, he can't do it. He can't do it because he's made it, he can't break his own rules. That's what it is. And one of his rules is honoring free will. And sometimes free will gets you killed. And it's that simple. God isn't the reason you were killed. The reason you were killed is because you did something foolish. And then you have people who use discretion in everything they do, and because they use discretion in everything they do, they live to a very old age, and maybe even live, well, I mean, live, never die, just go up in the rapture, maybe even that. Well, I've discussed the whole thing about God, the statement God is in control. So that